athletes take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict II Athlete podcast. You're about there. Coach Blue Robinson here. I want to thank you all so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. Greatly appreciate you doing so. Hey, as always, check out that website, addicttoathlete.org. You'll find backlog podcast information about the team, how to start a chapter of Addict II Athlete in your community, and so much more. Athletes, keep an eye on that calendar. We have some awesome events coming up this summer, and we're in full swing. I just want to give a special shout out and thanks and congratulations to Team Addict II Athlete for completing the 197-mile Top of Zion Ultra Relay last weekend, and what a great experience it was. We were able to go out there and run proxy for the folks that we've loved that maybe lost their battle. I want to thank all you athletes and supporters that helped us get to that finish line. So keep an eye on the calendar. We got lots of amazing things happening this summer. We want you to be a part of it to get you to that starting line of recovery. Well, athletes, I've got a returning guest onto the show, and I feel like I owe him a great deal of thanks and gratitude, and I can't wait to get him over on this side of the Mississippi here very soon. Boston Bob, welcome back to the podcast, brother. When we went out there just a few weeks ago for my son Boston's graduation, you graciously picked us up at, it seemed like 0:30 at the airport and took us for a tour around your city, and oh my gosh, we all fell in love with Boston. So brother, officially welcome back to the podcast. We got lots to talk about, man, but catch us up a little bit. What's Boston Bob been up for the last couple of years? It's been a few years since you've been on this podcast. What have you been up to, brother?
First of all, Blue, I like that hat.
Hey, a great guy
Coach.
gave me this hat.
Yeah, I got that from Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning, and out this way, who they train, recondition the pros in the USA women's hockey and so many different teams. And I found them about 6 months ago, and they added life to my fitness future.
I love it.
I got a little operations to go through and get some repairs done. But so yeah, what's going on with me? It's I don't know. My recovery, 38 years. It's like I would love to write a book. I can't even follow my own story.
Here.
And I don't do the public speaking in a lot of podcasts, and even speaking at, recovery meetings, 12-step meetings. I've always, I do, but, it's just where I started was I was a burnt down house. I had nothing. I was never taught to love, never taught not to drink, never taught not to do things the right way, honesty, and we learned crime in my family, just the basics, and so that was something I was taught, So as time went on, thrown out of school, a good kid. I had a heart, but I'll say hot for you people that, but it's just I was a lost kid before I started drinking and smoking, and as soon as I hit high school, I'm the youngest of 5, and it just ADD, anxiety, and I couldn't fit in, and doing anything. I couldn't keep up with home. I don't think I ever did homework in my life. And I had so much anxiety and fear that the teacher would call me to stand up in class and read or whatever, and then 7th grade comes along and okay, I'm going to try to do this. I'd sit down in class, no idea what they're talking about. I could barely add. Now I'm trying to,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The best thing I could do, and it wasn't, maybe it was my first choice, but smoking weed and drinking beers. And, I met a beautiful girl I just happened to be married to today. Thank you, God. But it was 40 years ago, at least, but 50 years ago. But, I just existed. There's no use to go into the war stories and the drinking, the smoking, the principal just hook me by the throat and throw me out. And my wish to get into one of the top outlaw motorcycle clubs in the area. I was heavily, heavily addicted to crystal meth. And so any respect and loyalty I had to anyone was stolen by my love of crystal meth, cocaine, drinking, so it might have saved me, maybe, because going into the motorcycle club with the guys, they're all dead now, the crew I lived with, but they were very, very, very serious, violent, dangerous guys. And I knew in my heart that I wasn't like that. I doubt Like I had no idea if I'd even find it, but I knew there was something different. I ended up in treatment, and then I can kind of pick it up from there where I got the bike boots on. I'm in treatment in 1987. I had no idea where I was going. I never heard of 12 steps. I've never heard of detox rehab. And I ended up in a place in New Hampshire up in the mountains in the middle of a snowstorm. And I think to escape group, I probably walked out on day 3 or 4 out in the parking lot and I ran. But I ran around the parking lot, right? I ran around in circles. I had never run. I had never thought of running, right? I didn't know anybody that went out and ran the 5K or whatever. So how did that happen? How did I end up in that place? Like I knew somewhere inside of me, I'm just too good for this stuff, right? The guns and the blah, 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 I could hang. But if I had to hurt someone, it wouldn't be because of me. I don't think I'd ever rob a bank or get involved with a serious violent fight or whatever, unless I had 2 or 3 guys, not backing me up, but just with them. It would be people pleasing for them
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever. And
Well,
so
Bob, I have a question for you, man, because like this is why I love you to death, brother. Seriously, like I truly believe that we are cut from the same cloth because everything you just kind of like laid out there is dang near the exact same replica carbon copy of what happened to me. Same substances, same situations, same schooling, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of an interesting situation that happens, and I think when we get this, this heavy laden kind of like, where do I belong? I'm not the scholastic kind of guy here, and we try to figure out where we're going to be able to stand. We find these people that will accept us, and to a degree, they really are very real relationships. It's the same thing, but then there comes a point in time where it's like we have to kind of go out and do this alone. It's interesting, brother, that as I was sitting in the backseat of your car as you're driving us around Boston, and you're telling me more about the things that you did around the city and how you started to kind of create this recovery process in your own life and spread it. I was like, this is I told Marissa after you dropped us off, I'm like, that is so crazy. I'm like, that same thing happened to me. And I'm curious, brother, about like that poignant time when you're out there running around that parking lot where you're like, I don't know where to go. You're literally running in circles. Was that kind of like the kickstart to be like, "What am I doing? I've gotta be doing something for me because uh, I'm aimlessly just running around here going nowhere, but trying to move." Like, I could just see you, like, in a hamster wheel trying to escape because that's what happened to me, and then that pivot point where the gate was open, the door was open. I took it, you took it. How was it when you found your outlet? Like, tell me a little bit about that pivot point, brother.
it was like I had never heard of God. Like I couldn't spell God back then. I was really a very confused 27-year-old guy, right? And like the only type of friendship and kind of like loyalty and stuff and respect that was given to me were the guys from the motorcycle club. And they even said, "Yeah, treatment," I'm like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" So I went in there and I see a big "But for the grace of God" on the wall, and I'm like, "No, no, 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 man. Yeah, I'm not never been to church in my life. I'm not gonna start. You people are like you're trying to capture me, you know?" And I didn't know, and they said, "Ask for help," and I'm like, "Who do I ask?" Right? I had no idea. And, like, I think because it was such a clean slate and I had never heard of recovery, I heard something like, "Just show up," or "Just pray, just ask for help," and I'm like, "I think they're talking to me. Everybody must do this," and one of the key words was gratitude. I didn't know what it meant, right? And so probably, I don't know, a week or so into it, the a group come in from outside to put on a meeting, and we're in an auditorium, and they had the "But for the grace of God," and I'm looking like I don't even want to walk in the front of the hallway because of that sign, because I was like afraid of it. I didn't know. I'm certainly not co-signed by God here, I didn't think. But then they had this big biker from the fifth chapter motorcycle club, the sober motorcycle club come up. And his actual name was Biker Bob. And he was a New Hampshire guy from the woods with the big furry face. And he said, "You know what?" He goes, "If you think this is about God," and he's pointing to the banner, right? And he said, It's not. He said, see that G.O.D? That's a group of drunks, right? That's us. And I'm like, huh? And he said, if so many people in this world can recognize an alcohol and drug problem, get together and start out through places like this, he goes, then that's my God, right? And I'm like, wow. And like, then I'm thinking, a sober biker club, that's like, that might be, I knew I was done with the alcohol and the drugs. And like, I knew somewhere in my heart I was too good for that, you know? And like, if I hit a squirrel in my car or on a motorcycle, if I was alone, I'd go back and check on it, you know? And, and here I am with, living life on the other side with, whacked out of my mind. Somebody cuts me off in traffic, I'll chase them 2 states away and punch them out. And, I was just like, that stuff there. So it kinda my ears went up like, "God, I don't know, a group of drunks, there's that many people that don't drink or drug?" And then I'm like, I took a step towards, Biker Bob and said, "You guys really have a club, like, you don't drink and" he said, "No, we don't drink and drug." And I'm like, "They must have some great crime going on, right? If you're sober." And, like, and once I got to know him and, like, by the end of the night, that could have been the first time the door opened for me. Yeah, like, I never knew there was anything out there, and I knew being here today in that place, 28 program, I knew I was not gonna drink or drug again. I'm like, "Whatever this place is, or whatever this journey is, I'm taking it."
Was that how it was for
I
you,
would
Bob? I mean, literally, because I hear this a lot, man. I want your thoughts on this. I hear this a lot because it happened to me when I made my decision to stop. That was it. That was the end of that experience and the beginning of a new one. And some people say, no, you've got to have the rock bottom. And I think that was my rock bottom. I got to a really bad place, but I didn't have to go back and dig anymore. And so, same with you, brother. Like when you made that decision and not deciding, maybe I should quit, the decision to be, this is the end of this experience, the beginning of a new one. Was that all it took to look backwards and be like, I'm moving forward now. Goodbye, old life. Hello,
Yep.
new one.
I had no idea where I was gonna do it, how I was gonna do it. Maybe that's
Yes.
where hope came in, but
Yes.
that's why I'm not gonna go against anybody, and, like, I don't make the suggestion that, "Maybe you should go out and have a few more. Maybe you haven't hit bottom yet, or you haven't had enough." And, like, I had enough at 16 years old when I was a lost kid being thrown out of school, and all I wanted to do was go sit down with my girlfriend that I had for a couple years back then, was my wife now, and sit down with my friends on the hockey team, right? And here we're getting thrown out, thrown into the world. I went to work for, the highway department. I hit all those jobs. But it's like when I was in that place there, they, oh yeah, the promises. I'm like, whatever, and like I would be happy to not drink or drug, have a motorcycle that's not stolen, live in a small apartment, and like maybe find a girlfriend that's, sober a couple months and whatever.
Kind of likes
I
me
would have been
back.
the
Yeah.
happiest man in the world,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Yes. Simple
'Cause I didn't
pleasures.
know about material stuff and like, oh, just I didn't know any of that. I didn't know it took me several years to learn the difference between recovery and sobriety. And I had
Yeah.
sobriety for several years. So anyways, I that's where the wheels fell off at 16, 15 years old. Like I didn't know that like this little girl that I met in 7th grade that comes from a family that like has respect and real big family. And I knew most of them, but like I didn't know that like she's a keeper. She can teach me how to live, right? And like I didn't know that I didn't know how to, that I was living the wrong way, other than the alcohol and drugs. But I just kind of existed, and it was very painful. My first years of sobriety, like people would talk about 12 steps, and I'd look at the banner on the stage and like, no way, I'm not gonna be like I had to learn honesty, what it meant before I tackled that, right? And it's like I was sober 7 or 8 years, and I landed in a step meeting finally, and spent 14 years every Monday night, and that's what I learned that like because I was terrified I was going to lose my wife, and we got married early in sobriety. I hadn't seen her for like 20 years.
Which is so
But
rare, Bob. You know that, right, man? I mean, the fact that you guys have done this, is, like, phenomenally rare, and I love it because it shows me that you both aim toward the same goal. You're willing to do your own work to make that work, which is mind-blowing, brother. It's amazing. Like,
right.
congratulations.
And it was kind of like you and your bride there. It takes a lot of work, and so I was at the step meeting, and like I'm like, I hope I don't end up divorce. That's what my family does. My brothers, blah blah blah. My father. I was terrified of that, right? So I would be in the meeting and practically in tears, new to this step group, saying, "I know I'm going to blow it. I have a beautiful wife, two beautiful little kids. I'm going to lose them because that's all I know. That's what people do in my life, and what a very quick process with the guys. And I said, "You want honesty? I'll give you honesty." And they said, who turned out to be my sponsor, he said, "Bob, who do you love? Who have you ever loved in your life?" I'm like, "What? I don't know. Every girl I ever went out with, maybe. I don't know. That word wasn't used at my house, right? My brothers and sisters, and. So he said, "You're not going to be able to love anybody until you learn to love yourself, you know?" And that was a big turning point in my life. And like, it all made sense, the honesty and, I grabbed gratitude in the very beginning, but, honesty, loyalty, acceptance, honor, respect, all those words. And it was a lot of hard work to do that, you know? And, I went to work in the prison. I just mentioned in the last one, like 6 months sober. Here I am, heading for a motorcycle club. And then I'm so turned around, I'm sober. I'm going to work in a prison. And I'm like, "Oh, I can't, no way, man. I won't fit." Right. And then the COs, they like to drink and party and raise hell. And I'm like, "Oh my God." Like AA says, stick with the winners. I'll have these guys' heads spinning if I ever get them on the crystal meth and, working in the we'd never go home, we'd hang around there. So, in as bits and pieces as respect and honor came in, some of the lifers, some of the long-term lifers and stuff were, I knew some of them growing up, and they kinda saw something in me, I guess, that, I didn't preach the 12 AA, 12 step or anything in prison. I was terrified of anyone finding out. But these guys liked me, right? And they kinda looked out for me when I was a new guy in uniform, and they'd kinda, "Bob, see that guy or those COs over there?" He goes, "As soon as you walk away, they're talking about you." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You gotta watch. Be careful around them." Right? Yeah, I was running around the place like crazy. I'm lighting barrels on fire again. I wanna fit in. I wanna fit in with the wise guys. And they're like, "Slow down, slow down." And they could have asked me to bring it if they asked me to bring in guns in my first 6, 8 months of sobriety, I probably would have brought in, a tank and a couple of kilos just as a people pleaser, as a crazy dude, but thank God for them. I'm still friends with a lot of them that are out now in recovery. They, these guys are all we're a couple of them
Bob,
are like
real
my
quick, brother,
brothers.
what is the general population out there, the muggles, the non-magic folk out there, what do they miss about this population? Because, man, again, the same heartbeat. I haven't been as deeply entrenched in that population as you have, but I work, 2 days a week out there at the county jail here in Tooele, the north, south, sorry, a little bit east of, or west of Salt Lake City. And I've been there since January pretty heavily. And there's these amazing people that are now being released that are now starting to participate on Team At the Athlete. And when they come into this group, no one would ever know that Coach Blue met this guy behind bars. What are what does the general population miss about these people? Because they'd made their mistakes, they paid their dues. The ones that really want to turn that mess into a message, they step up. And I think the general population doesn't understand how strong of an advocate these folks can be when they've turned that leaf. Don't you think? Like, what are they missing, man? Because
Well,
obviously we got the wrong idea with the majority of these folks who come out ready to do the work. You've seen that in them. You've rubbed shoulders with them. You still are friends. These many years later, what did you see in them that society didn't?
it's like I fought this battle my whole career. back in, the early 90s when I first started, it was like, take away all the gyms, take away the everything, right? We're gonna be tough on crime. And it was warehousing, right? And then you had Boston Bob walk through the door, like, it's about respect to me, man. I'm not like, I don't wanna preach my recovery to anybody. I don't wanna tell anybody what to do. Again, like, I just kinda led by example and was a nice guy. And they respected that, and, like, the system, it's us against them, it's us against them, right? And even with on the street with the police officers and everything like that, it's us against them. So, the uniforms in the prisons, like, if you show me respect, we'll return it, right? And you'll become one of the good guys, we'll put you in minimum, we'll put you on work crews and all that, but a lot of them don't wanna do that. So, when I did it, I think I took my hand out of my pocket first and showed respect to them, right? I didn't tell them, "You respect me and I'll give it back to you." I gave it to them, and it came back tenfold. So, the system now, it's like, they just it's so sad, it kills me, right? And I built the work program which we never had in Mass. I took out 10 guys. They were all in recovery, I didn't know it, right?
I think this
And,
story bears repeating because I was blown away standing where you took them, thinking the hurdles you had to clear to get these guys to where they were. I was telling Marissa, I'm like, Boston Bob's in there working miracles because that was unheard of. Share with the
right.
listeners that story about you taking these guys out and putting them in positions where they felt like they had that respect, they had that stewardship of responsibility, and what it did. Because it's a great story, Bob.
It's very simple, right? Like, I had some 12-step teaching when I started. There was a job posting, take out 10 men on a work crew. What the hell? A work crew supervisor? I didn't know what it was. Massachusetts never really had that before, and other states have had it, but we're real small. It's like, you turn around and there's a building, there's a house, there's traffic and everything, so you can't just put them on the highway in the middle of nowhere. So I bid on this job, not knowing what it was, and then I heard, no, you don't have to wear a uniform. I like that, daytime, weekends off. Well, let's go. So I took 10 guys and brought them into the state house, and that's what the governor at the time meant by teaching these guys to bust rocks. We're gonna put them to work. So I go up to the prison, and I was new at, like, and, so I go up to pick up, these 10 guys, and, they get in the van, and here I am, year or so, 2 sober, like, I got the answers. You don't wanna mess with me, right? I'm a street guy. So I pull over down the street, and, from the prison, I introduce myself, and I go, "All right, guys," and, I said, I get it. I should be here with you, but I'm not. I turned my life around, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "But I'll show you respect, but you gotta show me respect. And I don't want any screwing around, right? We're going into the state house to paint, and, like, there's people everywhere, there's public everywhere, right? Pretty girls everywhere, you know, phone booths on the wall and all that. Don't mess with anything. If you wanna do something or you see something or you want something, you have to ask me." Right? And I said, "Don't screw with me, right? Because if you do, I'll put a bag of dope under your pillow and you'll never get out." Right? And these were state prisoners, county inmates are different, but these guys all had 7, 8, 10, whatever years in. So if they screwed up, they'd lose their parole. If you screw me, I'll get you, right? I guarantee I'll get you. And they're like, "Okay." And they're just like all quiet. And I start driving. And the guy in the front reaches into his, little tote bag, pulls out the AA 24-hour book, the Reflections book, and he's reading it. I'm like, wow, he's an AA. He's an AA, recovery guy. I'm like, huh. I don't say anything. Hands it to the guy behind him. He's reading it. Next to him, next to him. All these guys were in recovery, right? It was like a recovery group from the prison. And I'm like, here I am threatening them. They got better recovery than I did, you know? So we went, like, I built that program all on respect of conversations like that, and again, I'm not gonna treat you like a bunch of inmates. I'm not wearing a uniform for a reason. I have a golf shirt on. I'm not gonna push, 10 of you against the wall and count and search you and all that. we're low key here, but it's about respect, right? If you're gonna flirt with the girls, this isn't the place. You can look at the girls, be nice, make eye contact, say hi, but you have to act better than construction workers. No cat calls, no whistling, no, turning around and checking them out when they walk by. Man, this is where we're gonna be hitting the streets soon, so come in, tuck in your shirt, be kind, be nice, relax, and we can make it happen, and that just grew. My whole career was spent doing that, and we ended up having 2 or 300 inmates involved with the Boston Marathon, through the work
Amazing.
crew program.
Which is huge, listeners. I mean, those volunteers make or break an event, and something as big and as complex and as valuable as the Boston Marathon. When you think about it, that Bob's got 200 plus people running through there that all have incarceration and addictions and problematic histories, helping you get to that finish line. It gives you a whole different level of respect, doesn't it, for the volunteers because you don't know where they're coming from, but they're showing up for you. That's amazing, Bob. I love that.
And it was again, this was a guy with a GED that came up with this, right? And I would say 12-step recovery, my running friends, I had some of these guys get out and run with my running club, the Boston Police Runners Club. Here's a guy that did 20 years. He's out running with us, hitting it off with a state trooper. Everybody, like, it was cool. So when we were out there, toughest part of my job was the COs, right? Because they usually work behind the wall, they put in for the overtime. So they think I'm crazy for trusting these guys, right? You let them just walk up and down Boylston Street, and I'm like, "Yep." And so I tell the officers, "I got this, right? Leave them alone. You're on overtime. I'll get you a Boston Marathon jacket, but just leave them alone. They know what to do, right?" Then, you get in your overtime. Then I'd say, "Take a walk for a minute." I opened the back door to the van. I go van to van. Every one of them, most of the guys knew me, but, on a big event like that, I had to make sure they all did. So I'd say, "Guys, it's a beautiful day. There's people everywhere. We have no idea who these people are, right? It could be some queen or king from some country or, Washington or whatever. We can't mess around here. I will treat you with respect, but you're gonna see everything. I'll make sure you get fed. You'll get fed very well, right, today. And then, but you gotta respect the officer. I know what you think of him, blah, blah, blah. I already talked to him. Don't mess with him, and he won't mess with you, okay? So, if they're setting up, they would set up barricade fencing from start to finish, right? 26 miles plus. They'd follow tractor trailers, and they'd, 2 or 3 guys on the truck that hand it down, that set it up. It was, like, the best, right? And, and I'd say, "Don't," if the truck's gonna go down the street around the corner, don't stand on the back of the truck because you'll be out of view of the CO. And he's in his van, following behind, right? And, like, so respect him. Tell him where you're going, what you're doing. You don't, just all the basics. The porta john, don't tell him you're gonna walk a mile back to use the bathroom at a porterhouse that's on the side of the road because you're setting them up. You're going back to find, so walk forward to one. We'll use it when you're right next to it.
I love how in
And they
real
respect.
time you're coaching these guys on everything that could possibly go wrong, that could get them in hot water, like in real time, that could actually happen. And I love it. It's like legitimately on the job training, you know. And again, it's you're talking to them like human beings. You're saying, hey,
Yeah.
if you do this, that might happen. So why don't we choose this? It is like on the job coaching, Bob, and I'm loving this, and they're respecting you because they want to be there, and so they're following through with this stuff. And I'm sure everybody else, when they'd come back and make the count every night, were like, "Damn, Bob, Bob was right. They're all here, and they're happy. They're doing something." I can imagine the conversations that were had outside of your earshot about like, "Wow, this is different," because I've seen it happen with Addict II Athlete too. Continue though. What else did it create? What else did it build?
Right. As you know, though, the jealousy comes in, right? And the COs, you're getting $60 an hour. I'm gonna feed you. Don't worry about it, right? It's like they love me, right? Because I was still a CO at the time. So some of the managers were like, "Who's he think he is?" Now I was in charge of the budget as a CO because I wanted to get my retirement at 20 years. So some of them didn't like it, and I'd say, "All right, I need, 10 guys, I need 5 crews, 10 guys in each one," and they'd send them out with 4. And the event we're doing, I need these 2 or 3 guys that I know very well to unload that truck. Now, they held them back just to kinda bust them. And so the friction started, I went into management and, it's like a commissioner that we had most of my career, and he called me right in and said, "Balfour, I don't know how you do it, but these guys will do anything for you. You love the way you work, but if something goes wrong, you're on your own, right?" And and like he one of the few that knew I was in recovery. And like in my mind, I'm thinking I could take 30 of these guys, we could build a house in a week and nobody would even know it, right? But I learned the honest part that you don't screw around like that, right? And what I was taught and how I did it, I passed it on to them. But then as we got a change in governors and everything like that, I was at about my 25-year mark in corrections, and this guy, yeah, yeah. So the commissioner, the governor put in a new commissioner who had been in corrections the whole time. He was a prison superintendent. I thought he liked me, like, whenever anyone in the corrections field called and said, "Hey, we got 2 feet of snow. Our officers got to get in. Can you say, no problem. 3 a.m. I'm sending the front end loader down there. It'll be on a trailer. Just make sure you feed the driver from the highway department, or if they had trees down, and I'd send 2 or 3 front end loaders, halfway across the state to plow the snow drifts out from behind the wall because they was afraid that, like, these guys, if that freeze, these guys would run right up and over. So, yeah, so everyone knew they could call me. I never flaunted it. I didn't push it. I didn't play favorites. I was just like, I'm a recovery guy. I do things the right way. I'm amazed that I'm here, right? But there was a guy that got promoted to commissioner, and I had recently, a couple of years before, went into senior staff. I got to wear a suit and tie. Like I don't like suits and I just like I don't like teachers. But I'm senior staff, and yeah, it was cool. That was, I was in. I did good for under the other guy, the good commissioner. But this guy came in, and you have the 10 department heads and directors. You meet once a week, and I'm sitting there and like, my agenda items. I got probably 300 guys a day, pretty much year round, out in the public, working on highways and car accidents and truck rollovers and, downtown Boston, people fall downstairs. I want to teach my guys first aid and CPR, right? And I go, personally, I think every inmate in the state everyone should know first aid and CPR. And this new commissioner goes, "Don't even go there." I'm like, "What? Okay, right." And here's a guy I've known for a long time. He took advantage of all the stuff that I used to have, right? And he goes, "Don't even go there." And I was just comfortable. I said, it makes no sense, right? They come in every day, they come to work, they work in the city, they work in some very high profile places and events, and they stay out of trouble. I think we should give them something in return so we can get more from them, right? CPR first aid, the OSHA card, the OSHA 10-hour card, which I did end up getting them that. And this guy, "Don't even go there." I'm like, all right. And then, like, again, they didn't know I was in recovery. So I said, another thing is like, we have rain days, snow days, some days when it's just too cold to go out. I think we should have like 12 step meetings. There should be a requirement for these guys to participate. It's like if it's, middle of the summer and pouring rain or just a terrible storm, we'll put them in one of the seasonal skating rinks indoors. And in the winter, we put them in the pool house for the state swimming pools. And I'm like, I could bring AA speakers, recovery, motivational, military, just, speakers in to talk to these guys, right? And don't even go there, right? And I'm like, That's strange. It's like I've never been turned down from my ideas. And I go, it's almost like you want these guys to come back. And I had never believed that, right? The inmates like, oh, they're making money. I'm like, no, they aren't. Shut up. Whatever. But so I told this guy, the commissioner, lifelong corrections guy, I said, it's almost like you want to come back. And he goes, yeah, well, actually, it keeps the doors open. And I was like, wow. So that was like day one of me realizing that not everybody in the prison system, the higher ups, see life the way that I do. Here I am. I'm like dedicated. Like, if one of the guys wants to talk about, running, I'll sit there and chit chat forever. And, they're cutting grass and they want to talk about motorcycles or race cars or recovery or whatever. But they don't, that's not their thing. Put them out there to work, have them be visible, make sure they do nothing wrong, but we don't care what kind of work they do. We don't want them doing anything other than picking papers, right? And I had them running chainsaws, but first I'd have them trained on using a chainsaw. Make sure you have the helmet, the chaps, everything, weed whackers and brush cutters. But they didn't want that. That was a no-no. I could have got myself in a lot of trouble over the years by doing that. But again, the respect. I used to joke with them saying, all right, 10 guys in front of me, who knows how to use a chainsaw? And usually the first guy that raises his hand, get out of the way. You don't know what you're doing. And the guy that's in the back that's being quiet, I ain't telling nobody, he's my guy. And we did some huge money-saving projects for cities and towns in the state, uh, cutting out vacant lots and,
But
you
Bob, how
name it.
many of those guys then, after they were released, went back to those patterns that they knew, the chainsaws, the showing up to volunteer for races? I remember you telling me when you were showing us the finish line of the Boston Marathon downtown, that even during the calamities of the bombings down there, you had friends, past inmates that were there, not incarcerated, that had come back to help because you showed them something to do, another way to serve. How many of these guys that you were out there with then went on to utilize the stuff that you showed them they could do to better their lives, right? Like, so it's got to be a
A
gut
lot of
check to
them.
finally get that stop sign that's like, mm-mm, make it painful, make it quick, make it beneficial to us, and then get them back here. That had to be a huge heartbreak for you, man.
The way that I did it was a guy, Danny, that was on one of my early crews. He knew one of my brothers, Irish guy from, back in the day, and he probably my age, but he was a real solid guy. You could tell he did 15 years, very respectable, very nice. He was a union guy and stuff like that. So, I hit it off with him on the work crew, and he'd keep the guys in if anybody got out of line. Just like, guys, don't be doing that. Don't be leaving your food in the van under the seat. Just basic like that. But when he got out on parole and went to work for the union, he was a union laborer. He worked his way up, right? Then he's a steward. Then he's a union on the board. So he knew, like I would call him, Danny, I got one of my guys getting out. I think it'd be perfect for the union. He would love to do it. He's the best, right? Yeah, no problem. And like, so I built a reputation, even in the recovery detox program field and everything, that I don't wear out my welcome with people like him. I probably sent 7 or 8 people to him for union jobs, right? And most of them scored, big time. Now I haven't heard from a couple, but it's consistent. They're still doing good. They're big shots, right? Not big shots, but they're dependable union players, clean and sober. So, in like the event company that we worked with, that's in charge of everything at the Boston Marathon, from the flagpoles and the porta johns to the barricade fencing and sound equipment and everything. And we worked with them, and like the owner of the company, the CEO, he was on a first name basis with half of my inmates, right? And me, he was a recovery guy. He was the best, right? And so Bob, when is I forget his name, one of the guys, he was a fisherman. He wasn't afraid of heights. He'd go up poles and everything, right? Track the trailers, be on the roofs, and like he was a go-getter. When's he no. I don't ask him. Well, he's got 6 months left. Oh, where's he gonna be living? Boston area. make sure you come down and see us. You got to work for us, right? And they would go down and work for the company. Some of them full time. Some of them would do the seasonal work or the event work, and so it just kind of snowballed where that honesty that was planted in me way back in my recovery to just do the right, be willing to learn. Certainly, it was a learning experience, and to not do the wrong, right? Time went on, I got good at it, and I wouldn't refer somebody, "Okay, yeah, you want a job, you're not doing a heck of a lot proving yourself out here, you're a little bit on the lazy side, but you show up and you work when you're told to." I have a friend that owns a hot top paving company, they do parking lots and all that. Go to work for them. It's good money, right? And it's a rough and tumble crowd, but if you wanna get in the unions, stick around. You know where I am. I go to the meetings, I hang around with the guys, my running club and all that, and if they showed up and they did it, it would work, and, up at the State House, one of my best friends today, Will Morales, he was, on my I think one of my first paint crews. He was 19 years old, got busted with a bunch of, cocaine. He was in the X-Men, the Boston gang way back, and, he was behind the wall, and he got word that his brother had been killed in a shootout. Younger brother, 16 years old, and he just kinda lost it, but lost the whole gang thing and everything. Within a couple of months, he was with us on the work crew full time, and, it's like there was a state trooper up at the State House, a lieutenant, that legendary Lieutenant Ford, Marine all the way. He used to salute to people, anyone that walked down the hallway. So this kid, Will, took a liking to the guy and was talking about the Marine Corps. "I want to do this and that. What do I gotta do?" And, like, this kid took off right there. He made some great connections in the State House. He ended up getting out. He went to work for the city of Boston, dealing with the youth gang stuff, and within a year or so, a new mayor came in and just bumped into him and said, "I know you from up at the State House, right?" You say, "Yeah." He ended up becoming the director, Boston Youth Families Programs, all kinds of stuff. So, he really, like, made it a suit and tie job, everything, director. And I asked him to come up after I retired. I did some work at the jail, and, it was doing group. And I said, "Will, will you come up and speak to my guys up at Billerica or at the House of Correction, the jail guys?" "Oh my god, absolutely." He shows up with a state car. I'm like, "Dude, you're doing better than I did." You know? Was very tight with the mayor, became the mayor's advisor and everything, on all, and, like, here's a guy out of prison, not out to make a big name for himself. He was low key, behind the scenes. He could make stuff happen. It wasn't about him. It was about kids. It was about protecting the mayor's reputation. It was, not, "I did this, I did this, I did this." So he's one of my closest guys now. He's down in Florida. He got his truck license after the mayor was gone. It kinda hurt him, but, that's politics. But he's still a legit gentleman all the way, and, like, I'm as proud as him and his son for being in the Marine Corps. It's like I said, "Will, that's unbelievable, man. I remember your first conversation with Roger Ford, and you didn't go to the Marines, but your son did." He goes, "That's my baby boy. That's my baby boy." I'm like, "Yep." So it's just like if the system would take a step back, right, and, like, listening to people like me and you, right? But, they have people making decisions on this. Never trust an inmate. Never trust an inmate. AA, NA, they can't come into prisons and put on meetings, right? And, like, they bring in drugs. Well, back in the '70s, they did, but now we have cameras everywhere. We have drug in all the prisons, so if they think that someone, is getting their hands on drugs, that's how they find it. They do the drug testing. The AA groups, like, we could do Zoom, but they don't do anything like that. Bible study, AA, NA, you know, um, the violence prevention, that was just so many things, anger management. They don't take advantage of that. It's free. And that's what I tried to say, and it was so frustrating for me. And after I retired, I went to the sheriff's department and through a woman that I knew her daughter, I helped her daughter out. And this lady called me and she goes, "You ought to come up to Billerica." I'm like, I'm done with that stuff, right? And she said, "No, I'm the superintendent." She goes, You should." I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, you come up and do groups a couple days a week." And I got 16 hours a week. Like, "What do you want me to do?" She said, "The sheriff," he said, "You can do whatever you want. I would like to bring in speakers from the outside. No problem. Can I bring in ex-cons? They're all my go-to guys that are doing real good." Yeah, if fill out the paperwork, they do a quick background check, as long as they don't have warrants, they can come in. I'm like, "Really?" I had a lifer come in, guy with 25 years, he's been out doing great, and they gave me the okay. So now I'm in there doing groups, and the inmates loved it, right? Having guys like them talk to them, and it's being kinda, like, policed by me. You can say what you want, and just like bringing someone that's just stock raving sober and is maybe still involved with crime. I bring in legit guys that turn their lives around and own businesses, have kids, all kinds of stuff. And it was a major hit, right? And like I love that. I do my own groups, and I'm like, "Guys, come on in the room." And they'd be looking at me like, "Yeah, we're gonna learn from you. You're a CO, retired CO. Get out of here, will you?" And I'm like, "Guys, go on. Ask anyone that's done state time. They'll know who I am." I said, "Just come in. I don't preach. I'm not gonna stick my finger and tell you, you gotta go to whatever." And like, listen, maybe someday you'll have a family member that has trouble with booze or drugs, your daughter, whatever. And if you have something going, like if you got the gang stuff and you got guns and drugs and women on the outside and it's foolproof, let me know. I want in, right? And they'd all start laughing. But and they respected that like I'm just, I used to hold up my fist and say this right here. You're on probation. If they come after you and they grab you, this fist is 5 more years. Don't swing at the cop. Come back in here, we'll regroup, I'll help you out, you'll be out within a couple of months, but shut your mouth, and like, one of the Latin kings, one of the OGs was, kind of done with that type of stuff, and he was finishing up state time, they put him in county for a while before they hit the street. And, so he would come to my groups and, I made some good friends in there, CEOs and, counselors, you don't do that. Well, I did, right? And it's all a check. So, we were there one day and 2 of them are talking. They're like, "Bobby, man," he goes, "you're an OG." And I'm like, "Ah, yeah, old guy. I get it, right?" And I'm joking around. They said, "No, no, no." And the other one says, "You're hood famous." I'm like, "All right, I know the OG shit, right?" That's good famous. What's that on YouTube or something? He goes, "Bob, when you walk in this place here, every single one of these guys looks at you that you're a guy that they respect. And if any one of them asks you a question, you find them an answer, right? And it's not blow them off. In there, they have counselors that they've never even met, right? And the office is right at the end of in the back of the unit. And like, guys, if you ask me to get into a halfway house, a sober house, job, tractor trailer school or whatever, if you ask me and like I am not sure the answer off the top of my head, I said, "Let me get back to you. I'll go call right now. I'll go in the office and call. I'll go grab some work. I'll do this. Yep, tractor trailer school is great, but you've got too much to go. It won't work for you. But how about the laborers union?" Right? They really, really, really respected that. And like again, right, right. Yep. And it's so I think that's what the system needs, right? I brought my guy George in, I brought fitness people, so many different people, a lot of counselors, people who work in the field, the sober, the bikers, the Harley guys that have bikes probably worth about 50 grand each. They went in to speak. And every time I brought these guys in, they explained it in their terms of you gotta earn your way out of here. You like don't depend on the state, right? You go to a halfway house or a sober house, you're there. Your job is to stay off of drugs, right? Don't screw up. Stay away from people that don't care about you, really. Then you have to learn on your own. How do I get an ID card? How do I get, involved with the union people? And then someone like me comes along. As a matter of fact, my friend Danny that did a lot of time, he goes to the meeting on Wednesdays, Wednesday night, the men's meeting. If you want, I'll bring it down there to him, right? Or if you want to go to school, you want to whatever, there's so many avenues and networks like that of people that like, yeah,
Bob,
you know,
that's the whole series of what you're talking about. You started this whole podcast off by your buddy pointing at that sign saying, "God, a group of drunks."
yeah,
You have now illustrated throughout this whole podcast about what a group of drunks can do. Does that make sense? And that is
exactly.
to act godlike, to help create, to help build, to help connect, to help inspire. Like as you were saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a full circle right there. Because now you're saying, hey, instead of just blowing smoke, you're like, I got this friend who does this. I have this because these are the people that you've surrounded yourself with. You've surrounded yourself with great people that have checkered backgrounds that's made them very, very important people because they're all connected in one way, shape, or form. That is the most beautiful, I think, eloquent way to describe like the acronym "a group of drunks" that I've ever heard in my life.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right,
Because
right. And
that's what it is at the end of the day.
I
I
think
love it,
I
man.
was chosen for my journey because, again, my first 5 or 6 years, just go to meetings, 2 or 3 a day. Just go. Sit down, shut up, and listen, but raise your hand too, but, and, like, it was too confusing, and, like, yeah, I would go 3 a day, the only thing I could talk about, right? I still did a little bit of running, but then when I ran into actually my guy Tommy, who he's a character, he's 80 years old, he smoked 2 packs a day and still, and we've run dozens of marathons together. And he kind of taught me the importance of helping people, giving back, using humor for that, right? And he's the guy that became friends with all the police cops all over the place. But it's like I remember people in the meetings told me like, "You guys run on Sunday mornings." We run the Charles River in Boston, right? It's like, "You gotta watch it. That's another addiction. You're gonna drink, you know." And I'm like, "What?" It's like we have me, 2 or 3 ex-cons, my sister, my daughter's guidance counselor from the middle school who's, like, never drank or drugged, right? Her husband's a police officer. Um, we have a state trooper lieutenant that's a hostage negotiator that's never done meetings or anything, been sober longer than me, and he's real funny. He would tell us stories about, never made an arrest in his life probably. But we'd run around the Charles River, and we would have, like, a life meeting, right? And my thing with my guys, getting out of the can, it's like we got a great running club. We have, my cousin Laurie and who's in college and her friends, they come with us. They think us recovery people and ex-cons are unbelievable. So I made sure the guys know this isn't a pickup club, right? Watch the language, keep it R-rated, the girls are the worst. So we'd be running and one person would start, "Oh my God, it's all screwed up on drugs," or "My son," or another one like, "I just can't get the job," and like, "I'm intimidated by you people," in the talk and stuff like that was unbelievable, right? I learned more there than I did in sitting in a smelly basement 3 hours a day, you know? Yeah, and like, that's always been my thing. It's like, I tell people like, "Aim high," right? And like, I basically dedicated my life to doing it not my way, but my way, right? And over the years, I've had inmates, I've had clients of the programs I've worked for that kinda get it, like, "I'm gonna bring you to a meeting. I was at your house, I picked you up. You got, a week, right? Just out of treatment. I saw you have a drum set, electric guitars and all that. So I'm gonna bring you to a meeting. I'm gonna sit next to my buddy, John, right? Same age as you, 60 years old. He has a garage band with his cousins. They jam, a couple times a month. You'll hit it off with him. The guy on the other side, my buddy Al, ex-Hell's Angel, right? Got the teardrop tattoos. He's batshit crazy, very spiritual, right? He's one of my buddies. I met him in prison, and he got out and turned it around because of my crew that I brought in there. So, Al is the greatest guy, but you have nothing in common with him. I'm not gonna introduce you, right? And Yeah, right, the guys like that, the low key guys, and then if I do have a biker or an ex-con or an ex-wise guy, come here, you gotta meet these guys down here. They're all smoking the cigars. They do the collection at the meeting. They think it's like organized crime. They got about $86 in ones after the meeting, and they gotta count them and have them all facing the right way. And like, they're you guys. You're not gonna steer you wrong and say, "Okay, yeah, we gamble on the side or we still beat the shit out of people." They're all legit. They work in the field. They turn their lives around. So, kinda mixing and matching, and nobody takes advantage of that. I don't think. I don't see enough of that.
No, I mean, I've seen it. I watched it firsthand with you. I mean, you talked to everybody, and it was the coolest thing. And I think that's some rest. I'm like, that's what has to happen. Is you gotta have this ability just to be able to meet the person, and I love it. There's a guy out here that one of my first guys that got out of the Tooele County Jail. He'd tell me every day I go up there, Dave Blue, I'm coming to your meetings. I'm gonna come, and I'm like, yeah, sure, Jason, we'll see. Everyone says that, right? Like, we'll see. I the day he got out, he shot me a message. Hey, I'm out. Let's do this. And I'm like, all right, we'll see. I didn't respond back to him as fast. He was there Friday morning because he knows I get there on Fridays, and he's in the parking lot. He came back to jail to catch me in the parking lot to say, "What are we doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're
Right.
serious? Well, here you go." This man has been full throttle ever since. He came down and crewed our 197-mile journey through southern Utah, not knowing anyone on this team other than me. And the
Wow.
whole freaking team fell in love with this guy. The race directors were like, "We're gonna steal this man because he's doing above and beyond." And I'm like, "Yeah, someone would have counted this man out." And Bobby, you're absolutely right. They come out with this hunger, man. And my hat is tipped to you, brother, because I think great minds think alike, and I hope that mine starts to catch up with yours because when I heard about your story, when I heard about what you did, it's almost echoing exactly what happened out here in Utah with Addict to Athlete, right down to the jealousy with the people that are why you doing this, right down to the advocating when everyone else was being quiet. I guess as we kind of wrap this up, brother, my thing is as you're looking back now, looking at how far you've come, you've still got lots of distance to still go. What are you most proud of when you look back and see the legacy that's been created? Because, you were a pioneer in this, man. I didn't know what you were doing out here, but hearing that you started this, in the 80s and 90s blows my mind because when I got on the scene, people were a little bit more like willing to like say, "Well, let's try this." You had to
Mhm.
advocate for everything and stand up for the guy that didn't have a voice. As you're looking back now, with still distance to go, you're not done yet. The race isn't finished. What do you what do you look back and can say, "We did that. That was something that I can
It's
be proud of."
like when I kind of veered off, right? And like running, and then the guy said, "Oh yeah, you're gonna drink if you keep running's an addiction." And it's like, come on, will ya? I'd have conversations with people. I smoke. I couldn't run. I weigh 300 pounds. I didn't ask you that. I'll put ashtrays on the side of the road. You can stop for a cigarette when you grab a bottle. But kind of breaking off from that, and it all goes back to when I started out, 3 meetings a day. And I know guys now, and God bless them, they're sober 40 years like me in 38 years, they still go to 2 or 3 meetings a day. Think of what they missed on that, right? And it's like, for me, when I kind of veered off of that, I had social anxiety, and I just came through Runners in Recovery. I became like a fanatic for guys like you and people all over the place, and my personality came in. Like I have you, hopefully come out and run with you guys next year, up in, Arizona, up in Prescott, Arizona, Sean Livingston, um, up there, this guy's up there, Recover Strong, down in Texas, 2 or 3 programs. I Am Redemption, who's my buddy now, who I wanna go down to see them. They made a documentary, then they made a movie, and these guys are just like you. It's not like I did this, and there's a lot of those people out there, they have their books and their videos and movies and everything, and, like, I don't wanna do that stuff. I wanna look for that guy that, like, "How the hell am I gonna do this?" And I don't wanna say, "Keep coming." I wanna say, "You know how you do it? You're gonna learn." Right? And it doesn't have to be fitness. You wanna go to school, you wanna get your GED. Before you get your GED, you gotta learn how to find the place to get it, right? You wanna go to college, You got to learn, how do you find the funding? How do you find out what college teaches? And so that's always been my thing. I hate to see anybody standing confused, and they could probably have great hope like I did way, way back, but they're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'll never get
I'll
this.
never get there. Yeah, but eventually that finish line, it's in sight. And so you're a man, Bob. You're absolutely right, brother. I mean, this hour goes by fast, man. But I guess that means we'll have to do round three here soon too, brother, because there's still so much more for us to tap in with you. But man, just I want to personally thank you for hosting Marissa and I in Boston out there in your neck of the woods. You know, it was awesome to see a familiar face in a crazy place. So I mean, I can't thank you enough for your hospitality there and showing us the ropes. And it was kind of funny because when you gave us those tips about Boston's kind of small, but this is kind of the area, dude. That was all we needed, and we loved it. And so such a beautiful experience. I appreciate that, brother. But after I get out of the car, I'm like, we got to do more with Bob. Bob and I are cut from the same cloth, man. So
Well, I want to come out to see you for that relay or one of your big events. One of my guys that was my client just up until a couple weeks ago, he graduated, but he did like 15 years, always stayed healthy and everything like that. And I said, hey, you want to go to Utah? They do a relay. Well, the next year, grab four or five guys. We'll do a little fundraiser and raise some dough for Addict II Athlete. Come out and hang with you guys. That would be so much fun. And then networking. If I brought five guys out, I bet you two of them would probably want to move out there and
that's
would be
true.
moving up.
100%, man. Yeah, we'll switch places. Nonetheless, listeners, you've been well fed. Bob, thanks you so much for being a guest here.
Hey,
We'll
brother.
put Bob's socials up here on the links below, and the link to his first podcast here on Team Addict II Athlete, because there's some beautiful experiences there too. Believe it or not, listeners, we've talked about a lot of new things. So go check that out. We'll link that to the ground below. And on behalf of Team Addict II Athlete and Boston Bob, go turn your mess into your message.